Vladimir Putin, the man who rules over the largest country in the world, Russia. Born in the Soviet era, Putin was responsible for running Russia after the tumultuous rule of Boris Yeltsin. In the initial days, he was celebrated by the world as the man who will take Russia forward. But by the turn of the century, his world image started to change. Since the crushing of Chechnya rebels, Putin has never been considered as anything less than an Iron Man. His invasion of Ukraine irked the world, but no one could stand up to him. Sanctioned, cornered, isolated, he still remains confident and defiant. But there's a slump in his posture. Paranoia of secrecy surrounds him. The man who survived 5 confirmed assassination bids might have escaped another one in as recent as March this year. He is rumored to be suffering from a life-threatening disease. About to be 70, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin is battling for survival in the harsh, cold, conniving Kremlin corridor of power.
Hello and welcome to this special broadcast. I'm Akshita Nandagopal. Speculations are rife over Vladimir Putin's health after videos of Putin surfaced that hinted at him ailing. Ukrainian military intelligence chief, however, has made a shocking claim saying that Putin is in bad physical health. He has various illnesses, according to this Ukrainian military chief, including cancer.
April 2022. Russian invasion of Ukraine was about 2 months old. Russian President Vladimir Putin had a meeting with his defense minister, Sergei Shoigu. In the video recording and the photographs of the meeting, the Russian president's physical appearance raised a few eyebrows. He's seen slumping and clinging to the edge of a tiny table as if to steady himself against a tremor or vertigo. He did not let go of the table in the entire 12 minutes of the video. Putin moves his feet up and down, appears restless and tense, and clears his throat a number of times while listening to the minister's briefing. Within another couple of weeks at the Victory Day parade in Moscow, the Russian president is seen sitting among the veterans with a warm blanket covering his lap. He was the only one on the dais with a blanket. Then came an explosive interview of the man heading Ukraine's intelligence agency.
We can
confirm that Putin is in very bad psychological and physical condition. He is very sick. He has various illnesses at the same time, one which is cancer.
In the second week of May, a US magazine reported on an audio recording of a conversation between a Western venture capitalist taped in mid-March with the Russian oligarch close to President Putin. In this secretly recorded conversation, the magazine reported that the oligarch refers to the Russian president and says he absolutely ruined Russia's economy, Ukraine's economy, and many other economies. He even goes on to say that the problem is with his head. One crazy guy can turn the world upside down. The information is not verified, but there are certain factors that can't be ignored. The fact that the man at the helm of Kremlin affairs completely isolated himself throughout the COVID-19 pandemic and seemed paranoid with screenings of guests raised few sincere questions about his sound health conditions. Russian independent media reported that anyone who wanted to meet or get close to the Russian president were asked to take a PCR test and even provide fecal samples. Vladimir Putin had meetings with foreign visitors both before and during the war, at medieval banquet-length tables that ensured complete social distancing, but neither he nor any of his guests ever wore a mask at any of these meetings. This October, Vladimir Putin will turn 70 years old. He is no longer the agile alpha man in his late 40s. who took charge of the Russian presidency for the first time in 1999 December. Moscow grapevine is ripe with rumors and doubts about the president's physical and psychological well-being.
The man who runs Russia is estranged from his family. He lives a life in public, but his lonely life is full of threats that he alone has to battle all the time. The Ukraine intelligence chief in May claimed that as recent as in March this year, an attempt was made on Vladimir Putin's life. He survived, but now lives under constant threat of a coup even.
Once an agent of sophisticated spy agency KGB of USSR, Vladimir Putin is no stranger to coup or assassination bids. Russian history from the days of Tsar Ivan the Terrible have always relied on intricate surveillance of its population and inner governing circuits. The KGB was responsible for this in the USSR regime. In modern Russia, the job is performed by the FSB. Vladimir Putin relies on them heavily. Right after his invasion of Ukraine in the early weeks of March 2022, Putin reportedly survived an assassination bid. There is no official confirmation of it from the Kremlin. Head of Ukraine's Chief Intelligence Directorate, Karailo Budanov, in an interview to a Ukrainian media outlet, claimed that there was an attempt to assassinate Putin. He was even attacked, it is said, by representatives of the caucus not so long ago. This is non-public information. It was an absolutely unsuccessful attempt, but it really happened. It was about 2 months ago. I repeat, this attempt was unsuccessful. There was no publicity about this event, but it took place. The Caucasus region includes the once restive Republic of Chechnya, which saw a bloody Islamist insurgency that Putin had suppressed. Budanov also claimed that a coup is brewing in the Kremlin corridors.
This will lead to a change of leadership of the Russian Federation. This process has already been launched, and they're moving that way. Yes, they're moving in this way, and it is impossible to stop it.
Another Western media reported that the Russian president fears he could be killed after he sacked senior generals over their failures to capture Ukraine. He uses his body double as a decoy. Again, there's no confirmation to any of these claims. But in a 2017 interview to a filmmaker, Oliver Stone, Vladimir Putin accepts that there has been 5 attempts on his life and that he relies heavily on his security agency for his survival. It was the KGB that masterminded the coup against former Soviet Union President Mikhail Gorbachev and led to his ouster. Putin was the Lieutenant Colonel of FSB before he became the Prime Minister of Boris Yeltsin's government. He worked hard to gain the president's trust to succeed him in less than 12 months of becoming the Prime Minister. Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin walks in the shadow of threat of a coup or an assassination to end his rule all the time, since he assumed higher echelons of Russian power. Bureau Report, India Today.
So who is Vladimir Putin? Former KGB, sometimes Prime Minister, sometimes President of the Russian Federation. His aura is very, very carefully crafted.
In 2012, as he entered Kremlin as the President of Russia, Vladimir V. Putin was walking in once again to continue his rule over Russia. Despite allegations of electoral fraud, Putin was taking over the helms for the 3rd time.
As I fulfill the duties of the President of the Russian Federation,
the journey has been remarkable. From a young spy in the Soviet era to becoming one of the most powerful and feared leaders in the world. No one could have imagined that the breakup of the Soviet Union would create and concentrate so much power into the hands of one person. It is almost as if a Tsar has been reborn in Russia. In 1952, security guard Vladimir Putin and Maria Shalomova had a son. They named him Vladimir, son of Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Vladimirovich grew up in a communal housing on Baskov Lane in St. Petersburg, then called Leningrad. An average student with no remarkable achievement to remember him by, the young Putin finished schooling and went to college to study law. The young boy, who had first wanted to be a pilot, then a sailor, got swayed by the idealism of the times and in 1975 joined the Komishet Gosudar Steni Bezopasnosti, or USSR's main security agency, the KGB. It was here that the real talents of Putin got to be recognized. Within months of joining, he was transferred to be trained in the elite counterintelligence division. In 1985, Putin was posted to the KGB headquarters in Dresden, East Germany. A posting that lasted till those heady days of 1990 when the Berlin Wall came down and the German Democratic Republic imploded in the wake of German unification. Putin was there at his KGB headquarters facing a mob when he realized that retaliation of the olden days was no longer possible because Moscow had gone silent. From the front line in East Germany, Putin saw how one after another the centrally planned economies of Eastern Europe staggered to disintegration. Out in St. Petersburg, he saw Russia's troubled early transition to a free market democratic system. Lieutenant Colonel Vladimir Putin of the KGB retired in 1991 and made his way back to Leningrad. The future looked bleak as the Soviet Union came crashing down. Putin considered himself lucky when he found work at Leningrad University. He was planning to do his PhD. But Putin soon found himself involved in politics and administration as the now renamed St. Petersburg began to reorient itself in post-Soviet Russian Federation. In 1996, Putin moved to Moscow, to the center of political power. In the next 3 years, his rise was phenomenal as he worked his way through the intrigues and plotting at the heart of Russian presidency. He was soon noticed by Boris Yeltsin, the president of Russia, and the man credited with having struck the final nail in the coffin of the USSR. In early 1997, President Boris Yeltsin appointed Putin Deputy Chief of Presidential Staff. By 1998, he was the director of FSB, Federal Security Services, KGB's New Age successor. A year later, when President Boris Yeltsin sacked the government, he replaced his Prime Minister with Vladimir Putin. On the last day of 1999, as the millennium changed, Vladimir Putin became the acting president of the Russian Federation, and Russia and the world would never be the same again.
44 million Ukrainians. There's one Vladimir Putin in Russia who's chosen to decide their fate. One man's call to war has hit the entire world. There are Ukrainians and Russians dying in the snow-covered fields and roads leading to Kyiv. But what really does Putin want? Why is he waging this war with such flimsy excuses? Is this about legacy or is it about geopolitics? The answer essentially lies in Moscow, with a 69-year-old former KGB spy who's today the president of the Russian Federation.
I am ceasing my activities in the post of President of the USSR.
The year was 1991, and on the day of Christmas, Mikhail Gorbachev, the last leader of the Soviet Union, announced that the USSR had ceased to be. Weeks later, Lieutenant Colonel Vladimir Putin had quit the now defunct and one-time dreaded KGB and was on his way to St. Petersburg. His world lay shattered around him. His future looked bleak.
Клянусь, при осуществлении полномочий президента Российской Федерации.
Decades later, as the president of the Russian Federation, he would call the Soviet collapse the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century.
Who is Vladimir Putin? This former KGB agent, his aura very carefully crafted, meticulously drafted. Like in 2008, when he was Prime Minister, Putin, along with journalists, was visiting a wildlife reserve in Siberia when a tiger charged towards a TV crew. Before anyone else could react, Putin apparently shot the beast and sedated it with a tranquilizer gun. This was reported as a headline on Russia television, but the action was never captured on camera. Years later, in an interview to a Russian magazine, Putin admitted that the incident was staged. It was done to draw attention to a species under threat, he claimed. And that seems to sum up the driving philosophy of Vladimir Putin. Trained in the elite spy school of Soviet Union, he remains a master of misdirection.
The Russian Federation, there will be no war. We don't want war, but we will not allow violating our interests.
The force driving Vladimir Putin seems to be his desire to make Russia great again. In the process, Putin has gathered powers that has rendered him czar of all he surveys, while undermining the institutions that strengthen democracy.
There was Alexander the Liberator and Yaroslav the Wise. We will have Vladimir, the underwear poisoner. That is how he will go down in history.
His detractors have been jailed, the latest and most formidable being Alexei Navalny, the leader of the Russian opposition. Before he was jailed, he had survived an assassination attempt. Many believe it was Vladimir Putin who had ordered his assassination with a Soviet-era nerve agent called Novichok. "30 years ago, when Ukraine declared its independence, it had the third biggest pile of nuclear weaponry in the world. That was its share of the nuclear arsenal of the Soviet Union. Only USA and Russia had more. But in 1994, Ukraine had willingly given up its entire stockpile for the sake of peace. Both US and Russia stood guarantors to Ukraine's peace, signaling that Ukraine will never be in need of such weapons. In 2014, Putin went back on the promise that Russia had made and ordered the annexation of Crimea. The annexation of Crimea in 2014 stamped Putin's legacy as what began to be termed the gatherer of Russian lands. Vladimir Putin became not only the longest-serving leader in Moscow after Stalin, but also the first ruler since then to expand Russian territory. Putin's invasion of Ukraine is ostensibly to teach its leaders not to tango with the West. A warning to NATO to stay off Russian borders and to stop their eastward extension. But whatever be the reasoning, stretching from Putin's alleged megalomania to claimed genuine geopolitical considerations, the fallout is going to be harsh. No one knows what Putin wants. No one knows how far he'll go. The world watches in trepidation as life hangs in balance. And peace remains subject to the demons that plague the fantasy of a single man.
And that's all we have time for in this special broadcast. Thanks very much for tuning in. The news and headlines continue on the other side.